Oh, hello there. Welcome back to the Four Bells. We are in week 2 of our legs cycle. Today we are doing a bunch of work on the old legs, the unilateral legs today. A lot of focus on split squats, leg strength and mobility in our 3rd day of this week. So it's the last day of this week before we head into, of course, next week, which would obviously be week 3. From there, to get us ready for today's squatty and kind of hingy cousined leg day, we're going to start off with 3 things. We're going to start off with a simple squat hangout. How does it feel to be passively in those ranges of motion in the squat? How do my ankles feel? How do my knees feel? How do my hips feel? Can I keep my torso in a good position? From there, we're going to do the bootstrapper squat. So not only looking at squatting mechanics, but also dynamic flexibility for the hamstrings. We're going to go over how to do that. Last but not least, one of my favorite drills for enforcing good squat patterns where we have to focus a lot on hip flexion, pushing the bum back, as well as thoracic extension, keeping the chest up. It is the wall-facing squat. So we're going to do 30 seconds of squat hangouts, 10 bootstrappers, 5 wall-facing squats. We're doing these 3 things 3 times in the warm-up. Let's take a look at them. So starting off with our squat hangout, just finding a range where we can just passively hang out. And you can do what Coach Ben's doing right here, which is have a little wiggle around. How do things feel? If the ankles are feeling tight, you can maybe push the shins forwards a little bit. If the hips are feeling tight, you can drive the knees out a little bit. If the upper back's feeling a bit tight, try and enforce an upright torso position. Either way, 30 seconds of fun. From there, in the bootstrapper, we are going to grab hold of our toes and we are going to send those hips up, straightening out the legs as much as you can. So you may think to yourself, oh my goodness, my hamstrings are so tight, I cannot straighten out my legs in any way. Doesn't matter, just get them as straight as you can. They don't have to be as straight and magnificent as Coach Ben's, and they are some straight and magnificent legs, Coach Ben. From there, when it comes to our wall-facing squat, ideally, we've got something to sit down onto. That would be the aim of the game, making sure that when we squat down, we're not going to fall into the abyss behind us. So you can start with the feet a few inches away from the wall, depending on your ankle mobility, your hip mobility, your thoracic extension. And you can start here with the hands up. You can bring the hands down by the hips if you want to make it a little bit easier. And of course, if this is easy, just walking the toes a little bit closer towards the wall as the sets and reps go on. In an ideal world, we just want to make sure that we can get those toes touching the wall while keeping the chest up. So we're going to do 30 seconds of a squat hangout, 10 bootstrapper squats, 5 wall-facing squats. That's it, 3 times. Today's antagonist pairing is split squats and Romanian deadlifts. We're doing the anterior part of the legs. We're looking at split squats today, so the front of the legs, quads and ankles being the big focus there. And then from there, we are doing the posterior chain, looking at the Romanian deadlift. So, and we're looking at our strength piece today. We have 4 sets. Each set is 4 minutes and 30 seconds long, split into 3 90-second windows of time. So in our first 90 seconds, we're just going to focus on one leg. So it says left on the board, but also could be your right leg. I would say once you've worked out which side is your tighter or weaker side, we should be doing that side first. So we're going to do split squats for 45 seconds on that first leg. And we're going to be doing them at a 2-2-x1 tempo, which means we're going to take 2 seconds to go down, 2-second pause, and then we explode up and take a second before we come into our next rep. So of course, 45 seconds of our first 90 seconds is one leg. We then do the same in the next 90 seconds on the other leg, and then from there into Romanian deadlifts. So with Romanian deadlifts, if you're lucky enough to have a barbell, feel free to use that bar, get progressively heavier as the 4 sets go on. If you have dumbbells, use dumbbells. If you don't have much heavy weight, just trying to slow those reps down and get as much stretch and as much loading out the posterior chain as we can. So let's take a look at these 2 exercises. So setting up for our split squat, we've just got to step that foot back and get into a nice split stance. So this is not a lunge, so that means we get the feet fixed and we're just keeping them in that fixed position. So the idea here is keeping the torso as upright as possible as we drive the shin forwards. So that means it should be 2 seconds on the way down, 1, 2, 2-second pause, 1, 2, and then we explode back up. So if this is easy for you, body weight style, you can of course add some dumbbells in. And once we've done 45 seconds on one side, 45 seconds on the other. Same rules apply, 2 seconds down, 2-second pause, and explode back up. When we get into RDLs today, we're looking at those pure hinging mechanics. We don't need to worry about bringing the hips down because what we're going to do is push the hips back. We send the hips back, big stretch of the hamstring and the glutes, a lovely neutral spine from Coach Ben here. Then we drive the hips forward, squeeze the glutes. Sending the hips back, big stretch of the hamstring, big stretch of the glutes, And then squeeze those glutes. It's the glutes that help us extend the hip or open the hip, so use them and squeeze those guys. And if we can, trying to get progressively heavier on our split squats and our Romanian deadlifts across our 4 sets today. Today's conditioning piece is 3 rounds of these 5 1-minute stations. So a 15-minute workout-ish, maybe 14 minutes, depending on how you look at it. Either way, the idea is we are trying to move consistently throughout each minute. You'll find that if you work for the whole minute, transitioning to the next minute is going to be a bit difficult. So I would say for the first 3, we're going to be doing about 50 seconds of work. Then you've got 10 seconds to transition over to the next exercise. So in our first minute, we're going to be doing dumbbell cleans, using hinging mechanics to get our dumbbells from the hips to that front rack position in the shoulder. From there, we're going to take both those dumbbells down by the hips. We're going to be doing some walking lunges. Of course, if you don't have a lot of space where you're training, lunges in place are perfectly fine. From there, we're going to do a heel elevated style of squat. We're going to be using just a body weight. We're going to be doing a cyclist squat today. We'll go over how to do that. You can use a plate, you can use a book, you can use a rolled up towel, whatever you have. And then last but not least, a very simple plank on the elbows, which we won't be doing for 50 seconds, but for the full minute. After that, everyone's favorite minute is, of course, resting. We're going to do these 5 things 3 times. Let's take a look at them. So starting off with cleans, we are using that hinge to send those dumbbells up to the shoulder. So it's a big hip drive, let that momentum carry through to bring the head of the dumbbell to touch the shoulder. What we're trying to avoid is just not using the arms and then swinging and doing a sloppy bicep curl. No bueno. We send the hips back, and we're trying to use that hip drive to get the dumbbell to the shoulder. From there, straight into dumbbell walking lunges. You can have the dumbbells down by your hips. We're going to do some walking lunges across our space. If you are blessed with a long basement or a long corridor or something you can lunge along, feel free to do your walking lunges. But if you don't have anything, you can just lunge in place. That works well too. Oh, lovely. A lunge in place from Coach Ben. From there, dumbbells down, we're going to get into a cyclist squat or a heels elevated squat. So that means that when we're setting up here, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. At the gym, we're using a 45-pound plate, but you could use a couple of books against a wall so they don't slide out and kill you. You could even use a big chunky rolled up towel. Either way, if we look at Coach Ben, you'll notice that the knees track forwards first and his torso is bolt upright and delightful. That's what we're looking for in our cyclist squat. Trying to get the hips as low as we can, torso as vertical as possible. Last but not least in our working minutes is the old elbow plank. So that means getting a nice solid base with the feet, driving the elbows into the floor. And you can also think about pulling the toes towards the elbows, bringing the elbows towards the toes, trying to tuck the tail between the legs and bracing in that nice tight plank position. And of course, our last minute is resting. Coach Ben shows how to rest. That's it. That's a beautiful rest. Thanks, Coach Ben. Enjoy your workout today. 3 rounds, 1-minute stations, dumbbell cleans, dumbbell walking lunges, cyclist squats, elbow planking, and some resting. Thanks, Coach Ben.
You're welcome.